Whatever you
If there's a win, then go get it.
What I call winning. If your goal is to be a better mother, if your goal is to get promoted.
If there's a life, you've got to live it.
So don't hide your superpower. Don't drop your mic. Don't lower your voice. Don't hide who you are.
If there's prosperity, I want you to have it.
Then what we aspire to become is really inevitable and not impossible.
And if there is wisdom, I pray you receive it.
And so I think the companies did not do a SWOT analysis of what could go wrong or what must be true in order for them to hire 50 or
IoT or all of the technologies that happen that we try to tighten up and shore up. But there's other factors that happen in the anatomy of a breach, and that is the human factor.
We have that same mindset about it's just a matter of time, it's not impossible, it's inevitable, then that will guide our walk, and we will walk boldly.
Always find a way to win.
When you have this growth mindset, you say, you know what? I've won before. I can win again. I have so much to offer. I have so much to gain. I am not done.
1, 2, 3. Okay, you heard from them. We gotta go. We gotta win. God bless you guys.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, family, friends, and colleagues. I welcome you to the Winner's Circle. You are part of the Winner's Circle. My name is Daphne E. Jones. I'm a former Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer. I'm a current public board member. I'm a published author of the book, Win When They Say You Won't. And I'm the CEO of the Board Curators. And now I'm a host for my first year of the Winner's Circle Live, which is a monthly podcast. These live broadcasts are where I seek to bring you great people who serve others, who inspire others, who lead others, whose mission will be to leave a legacy, and who will always find a way to win. In my book, Win When They Say You Won't, I share other people's stories and triumphs because I believe that by myself and by ourselves, we know a little. But when we tap into the resources and the experience and the wisdom of other people, we can know just about everything. So we are not here by ourselves or for ourselves, but we can all enjoy the knowledge that other people have. And that knowledge then can become our knowledge. This series of monthly LinkedIn podcasts are curated to really bring you topics that are most relevant to us. And these podcasts will help us to learn more than we currently know and hopefully inspire us to do more than we currently do. So a couple of ground rules first. First, the Winner's Circle Live, if you would like to ask questions, you can just do hashtag the Winner's Circle Live, or you can do hashtag Ask Sameer. That's Sameer, hashtag Ask Sameer. And you know, when you ask Sameer, he will have an answer for you. Secondly, the Winner's Circle Perspectives is my video series, and I encourage you to please subscribe to it. So it's time to introduce to some and present to others a leader who is using his superpowers to help empower the world, influence outcomes, accelerate growth to those who want to win with intention and courage. Let me tell you a little bit about him. His name is Sameer Somal, and he is the CEO of Blue Ocean Global Technology and the co-founder of Girl Power Talk. And he proudly wears his Girl Power Talk t-shirt all the time. He is a CFA chart holder, a CFP professional, certified financial professional, and a chartered alternative investment analyst. Sameer leads client engagements focused on digital transformation, risk management, and technology development. He is a testifying subject matter expert, witness in economic damages, intellectual property, internet defamation, and he authors CLE programs with the Philadelphia Bar Foundation. He is a frequent speaker at private industry and public sector conferences, including engagements at the Federal Home Loan Bank and IBM and the New York State Bar. And I actually have a piece of paper that shows the number of expert witnesses. We won't even have time. We'll have to talk like into next week to talk about all of the number of engagements that he's done, the number of witness testimony that he has given. But he has done stuff with the U.S. State Department's Foreign Service Institute. He's on the board of directors of Future Business Leaders of America, which is amazing, and Girl Power USA. Committed to building relationships, he is an active member of the Abraham Lincoln Association. We're going to get into Abraham Lincoln a little bit today. Academy of Legal Studies and Business, American Bar Association. You know what? We don't have all night. He's a Georgetown University graduate. He's held leadership roles, not just in charity organizations, but at the Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, Scotiabank, and he was named an iconic leader by the Women Economic Forum. And so most of today is going to be about what Sameer is known for, ethical leadership, which affects our reputation. We're going to talk about digital transformation, which is catalyzed by the Industrial Revolutions. We're in the fourth Industrial Revolution right now. And we're going to talk about digital transformation. That this phase is characterized by the integration of digital, the physical, and the biologic. And there's a lot of expertise that he has there. And so we're going to talk about inclusive progress. How do we make inclusive progress? And that's what happens when we work and are aligned with our purposes. So from his diverse bio, we can go so many places, but we're going to start, first of all, at the beginning. And let's welcome Sameer Somal.
Thank you, Daphne. Pleasure and honor to be here. Raise the roof. It's now that you've said all these nice things about me, it's going to be impossible for me to live up to them. But I'll do my best. And as I always say, Daphne, whether we're at the Business of Professional Women Conference, which I just had the good fortune of spending quality time with you there in Malta and making new friends, or whether I'm at a restaurant, or whether I'm speaking to the customer service agent at the airport, I always just try to be the same person and try to be present and genuinely, give without remembering and receive without forgetting. So it's going to be fun. I'm so honored to be here.
I love that. Well, thank you. We're going to break this up a little bit. There's a lot, and I hope you guys have seen before you joined today information about him. And I have my first question is, like, when you look at all the things that you do, the amazing number of talks that you give, your associations, your affiliations, the boards that you're on, your companies that you have helped co-found and are still founding more, how would you describe the main thing that you do that to make an impact on the world? You could have this whole list of things that you do, but like, what is most meaningful to you that describes who you are and what you do?
One, I'm an incredible friend to people. And I think that I try to find out where it is that people want to go and what they want to accomplish personally and professionally. And I try to be a small part of the reason and how they get there to do that. And that has a way of compounding if you do that over and over. And what gives me happiness and what gives me positive energy is relationships, is friendships, and is helping people succeed. And it sounds like, a little bit cliche or something like out of a book, but it's really true. And I live it intentionally and make, incredible sacrifices behind closed doors to help other people in ways that most people usually won't, and be the friend to them that I always wish I had. So that's how I look at it.
Right. There's a song that my mother-in-law used to sing, and it would be, if I can help somebody as I go along the way, then my living shall not be in vain. Your living is not in vain because you are helping people along the way in the background, which I find just so incredible. You're not necessarily looking for form and fame, but I think you probably get it because of the number of people that you have helped, and they want to reach back and say, thank you, Sameer, because of your presence. So you have all this energy, right? And passion and fire and drive. What is your purpose? If you had to say, like, what are you living for at the end of your life, and you happen to be able to write your eulogy, even though you're young enough to be my son, so you have a long way to go. What would you say your purpose was?
I would say one, to impact the world in a small way that is memorable and that is a lasting legacy of driving change and opportunity for others where they're disadvantaged.
Mm.
Two is, you know, one of my greatest compliments is the number of people that say, Sameer, you're definitely one of my best friends. And if I were to be sitting here and we'd be sitting, at my funeral, I would hope there'd be a bunch of people there that said, it would be hard for me to find and to compare, a better friend that I've had, and somebody that has really looked out for me and made sacrifices in their own life that allowed me to be the person that I am today.
Mm.
And I think so much of that is missing from just life. We yearn for connection. We yearn for people that we can laugh with, right? We can start touching on Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln called laughter the universal evergreen of life. And he would often laugh the hardest at his own jokes. But I think that that's what brings people together. Like, I remember when we were at the recent conference in Malta, and I recently reconnected with a wonderful woman there. And she said, Samir, I remember you sitting there, with people that you didn't even know. And I was like next to her, and I could see you laughing and having such a good time. And to me, that made me feel like, wait a minute, my conversation like isn't as good as the one that's going on there. Like, I need to figure out and be part of that. And I said, I think what made those conversations memorable is that it was never about what we do, right? Like, you meet somebody and somebody says, Daphne, well, what do you do? Sameer, what do you do? And it's like, oh my goodness, what am I going to say next is going to define me. So I try to understand what people are going through. If I can feel they have a struggle, I try to, lean in a little bit and give them encouragement, and not ask about it, but let them know that, hey, look, I can think of so many struggles that I've gone through, and today I stand here stronger and better than ever. And so I don't know. Those are some of the things that I think would matter to me most.
Yeah, that you are a friend who wasn't looking for benefits. That's who you are. That's your purpose, is to be that friend, and that's fantastic. And I see you're wearing your girl power. Can you show it a little bit? Your girl power talk. Why did you start Girl Power Talk? What was the impetus behind doing that? And you're a guy. Why did you do that?
Well, it's funny because I remember when we met at one of those National Association of Corporate Directors conferences, and you've got this collection of powerful, beautiful, accomplished women like yourself, and they would ask me, they're like, who's this guy that is a little bit fearless? He's so shy, walks right up to people and starts asking them about who they are, and I could see them, they're stealing glances at my name tag, and they'd ask me, well, what is Girl Power Talk, and what are you doing putting on? So one, I'm incredibly blessed to have wonderful parents, a doting mother that literally just made me the center of her life, and I think you appreciate that more and more, and a father who had the courage to say, Sameer, women have incredible strengths. And if you look at the way society has progressed, and for most of that, women have been, relegated to the sidelines. And imagine if that wasn't the case. But in spite of that, we've made so much progress in science, math, technology, economics. And imagine if women were part of the conversation and they weren't relegated to the sidelines. So that's one, that untapped economic and human potential globally. Yeah. And now we're interconnected in a way that we never could have imagined 50 years ago. I think two, the business case for women. I think that you, with respect to your journey and what you stand for, and your book that Girl Power Talk team loves. This better than anyone. The business case for women is well documented. They outperform all things equal when companies have gender diversity, when they have women in C-level positions. And then, of course, I think there's these very large youth populations, especially of women, and there is the glass ceiling is real. It's a glass building. It's a glass jail. It's and so how do you break down walls and put up bridges? And the final component to that would be having awesome women, female friends and mentors that said, Sameer, we need like guys to do something about it, like to literally go out there and do something about it, as opposed to, simply talking about it or giving us kudos. And you can actually have more of an outsized impact as a man on driving change in support of the emerging influence and affluence of women globally than women can, because there's so few men that truly try to be a voice for those who don't have one, both in thought and in deed.
A lot of men, a lot of people, they talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. They don't talk it like they walk it. And there is a business case and a cost, I should say, for exclusion. And when you exclude women, I can't remember the data, but it was in the hundreds of trillions of dollars that over time, because we have decided to exclude women from certain tables and certain opportunities, that we have lost opportunity as a country or as a world. And so you are such, when I hear you talk, you're not just talking, you're actually, when in the moment when you have to make a decision, you are choosing women. You're not going with what feels comfortable or because you're a part of the good old boys club. You help choose women. And you were born in India, or were you born in the United States?
Yeah, as I oftentimes joke, yeah, Indian American in the U.S., born in upstate New York. So,
Yeah.
if nobody was watching this, I could be Matt Smith over the phone. But yeah, I also, yeah, but I spent a lot of time in India, and it was very important for my parents and growing up that I understood my culture. But I'm American, although I have Indian roots. But it was a little bit of a cultural shock when I went over there as a teenager, then as an adult and a professional. And I'm like, I'm one of you guys, and they're like, no,
No,
you're
you're not.
not.
Yeah, I hear you. And I mentioned India only because when you think about, and I've been there many times, and women have their place, and it's not outside the home. The women have their place inside the home, and it's the men who work outside the home. And even the hotel, the people who clean the rooms and make up beds, they're all men. The women aren't necessarily allowed that. At least that's where it was, last time I was there. And so you're doing something that is against what is your culture in a way, and in terms of driving and tapping into that resource of women. So I think that's really phenomenal. And that's why I have you on the show today, so people can also see that you can walk it and talk it and still win. So when you founded Blue Ocean Global, or leading Blue Ocean Global Technology, and co-founding Girl Power, we always talk about the good side and what's great that's happened, but what have been your biggest challenges, and how have those challenges shaped your experience in how you approach being a leader? What went wrong in founding those organizations?
I don't want to put you to sleep, but you got a couple hours. One, I think having the courage to create something that isn't defined by a product and service, something that where you envision and you imagine this fictional book where culture is what Peter Drucker said. It eats strategy for breakfast, and to have the courage to say, you know what? Well, how do you guys make money? Like, what is girl power talk? I mean, it is so accusatory for so long, and because I put so much of my heart and soul into building it, I was so insecure about it, and like people would ask about it, and I used to want to tell them this is what we're doing, and then I started to realize that you just got to go do it.
Do it.
And so now, like when people join Girl Power Talk, and we're evolving and we're changing and we're due for a rebrand coming soon, to a theater, and you just have to have the courage to follow your dreams with it. So that's one. Two, I think celebrating the strengths of young people. I mean, I always say it's better to teach people the right habits than to have to undo bad ones. Having said that, getting back to Mr. Lincoln, there are a few things that are wholly good or wholly evil, but are rather an inseparable combination of the two. And by emphasizing this core foundation of young people and young talent, where it's a little bit of a meritocracy, knowing that nothing is perfect in terms of geography, country, school that people went, education, it's a perpetual exercise in patience.
So,
And
what your challenges were? Was there people who didn't understand and didn't believe? in what you were trying to do, and you showed them. You said this is what we're about. By the way, Abraham Lincoln probably got it from the Bible. Is that you raise up a child in the way they should go, and they will not depart from it. And that is the word, basically, kind of re-quoting what you just said about, rather than fixing the kids, let's raise them up right in the beginning. So it sounds like you had some challenges, but you believed in what you were looking to do. So let's go to this expert witness thing. It's not a very common role that people play, but yet still, I don't know where my paper is, but I saw, I think, 100 testimonies that you gave, at least, on this page. And so can you talk about why were you called to be one? What makes you an expert? What are you an expert in?
So one, let's explain for your audience what an expert witness is when two people sue each other. You oftentimes reach an impasse, or in order to actually move things forward and get a resolution, you need some objective opinion on what took place and to opine upon that. And also, what is the monetary value associated with it? And so, because I have a background in finance and I've worked for some of the major banks, and I understand finance, valuation, economics. And so that gives me a framework to understand, hey, when somebody's disputing a business, when there's a mergers and acquisition, or there's something that's gone wrong, I understand that from a financial sense. But because I founded a company that builds, monitors, and repairs digital reputations, and I did a really good job at that, and I'm self-learned, on those subjects, but having helped hundreds of clients, law firms said, Sameer, you're like the perfect expert witness. You speak at events, you've helped our firm. Can you be an expert? And I said, well, what is an expert witness? And why would I want to do that? So that's what it is. And then that was, fast forward 9 years ago. I've consulted on 400, probably 500 plus cases. I don't have where I've given advice. I've been named an official expert, in dozens. I've testified in trial. I've given deposition. I've testified against Meta. And I've been a voice for those who don't have one, for many small business owners and people. In addition to working for some of the biggest and most successful and prominent law firms in the world, I've also volunteered my time and helped people, a few on a pro bono basis, because I said, I've been so fortunate to be in a position where I'm at. And I've also handled, it's kind of like a little bit of a badge of honor as an expert witness, because I was getting interviewed yesterday by some attorneys, and they're like, we saw your case history, have you handled, because the case they interviewed me for was someone of prominence. And so they're like, oh, well, what are the cases? And when you're able to say that, hey, look, if you just Google, Judge Judy and defamation and In Touch, she's suing them, and I'm the expert witness on that. And so I think that, one, I love being an expert witness because you constantly are learning and you're getting to understand things from an entirely different context. You also get to meet people that you never would have. And so, as you know, Daphne, I make real friends everywhere that I can. And sometimes that takes longer. And that's to varying degrees across the board. But I do it and I keep it real. And there's so many people that I couldn't imagine my life without. And I think about, one client who owns an alternative investments company, and he had this unfortunate situation. Literally he worked for a company and he was a CFO, and the guys that founded the company literally were withdrawing hundreds of thousands of dollars. In fact, it was like 400 grand in cash, and going to Vegas to use it on cocaine and hookers and gambling. Like, it's straight from a movie. Like, that actually happened. He quit.
Yeah, of course.
And he started his own company because all the other good people there wanted to work with him. And then those people they were so angry about it, they started trashing him, and I helped him. But my point in that is that not only did I help him there, but then I helped him with his company and in a lot of different other aspects. So because when you're of value, you're able to help people and transcend that. But specific to expert witness on, many subjects related to internet defamation, technology development, social media, of course, economic damages, valuation, those are areas that I've built a degree of understanding and dare I say reputation.
Wow, that's great. And when I think about how you mentioned you're here to be a friend, and then I say a friend that isn't looking for benefits, when you're an expert witness, do you just go whoever is calling on you on the prosecution or the defense side, or do you go with whoever you believe is telling the truth? I mean, how do you decide whether to go on the good side or the bad side, or of a case?
Well, that brings up the moral and ethical dilemma that Mr. Lincoln oftentimes brought up, because there is like an American Bar Association code for lawyers, but Abraham Lincoln really struggled with cases where he knew his client was in the wrong. And so, one, I don't take a side with respect to defense or plaintiff. And in fact, that's a question I get asked. Sameer, what percentage have you done
Yeah,
plaintiff or defense? And I've done both. I also know that when you are thinking about whether a client's in the right, I can think of a few cases. Like one, Abraham Lincoln, he said, he said to the judge, like there was a co-counsel, he's like, "Judge, I'm done with this case, and I need to go to the bathroom for an extended period of time to wash my hands because they're dirty." And that's how he felt about his client. And he's like, "I can't argue anymore. The client's guilty. I need to go." And so many times I get to look at a case and assess it before I accept it. Many times you don't really understand it and know it. So yes, there have been situations and times where I remain objective, but I go through it and my heart's not necessarily as in it as it should be. Having said that, I got a pretty good sixth sense. In the vast majority, I do have conviction. And I also think about a number of situations when you took on an expert case and you knew how you meet people sometimes, Daphne, and you've got a great radar on people, and I've seen you in action and we've discussed this, but sometimes when you meet someone, you just feel like there's something wrong here. That isn't necessarily a good person, or I don't feel an affinity and a natural law of attraction there. And I've learned to go with my instinct on that and say no to things.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is the thing about Abraham Lincoln? Like, and I forgot the book that I actually have of his about loyal opposition or something about thieves. I forgot what it is.
Yeah.
About being close to your enemy or something. But why Abraham Lincoln? And if anybody wanted to get to understand more about Abraham Lincoln, is there a favorite book or something that you recommend that we read? But why is he important to know after all these years?
Abraham Lincoln, careful what you wish for. So one, Abraham Lincoln, yes, everybody knows who Abraham Lincoln is. And there's been more books written about Abraham Lincoln than anyone other than the beloved Jesus Christ. And yes, Lincoln accomplished so much at a critical time. So he went from the poorest of poor, having to walk miles to borrow books, no formal schooling, to becoming president of the United States. But he endured emotional poverty. He lost his mother. He lost his sister. His father farmed him out like a proverbial slave, farmed him out for money and kept the money, which Lincoln oftentimes said that made him understand the perils. He said, "I could never understand the perils of actually being a slave."
Yes.
But I knew what it was like to have my work and to be taken out in that regard. And then the losing his sweetheart, and then he had a tumultuous marriage, which of course is a point of debate, and in marrying a very strong woman. And then he lost one of his sons when he's in the White House. And then all of the pain and struggle of somebody, and to do that, and still, if you were to look at anyone who remained, indelible now, and almost unmarked in terms of being, hey, this is a perfect person. So for me, before I share one of the other beautiful areas, is that, like, if I can just strive to be a little bit like Abraham Lincoln, and we all can, if we all strive to be a little bit like Lincoln, we get closer to who we want to be in life. And so I oftentimes say, I crushed it today. Abraham Lincoln would have been proud.
You've been proud. All right.
Lincoln could have seen me behind closed doors today. He would have been like,
Yeah.
yes, Sameer was definitely a little bit like me today. Now, another key element, Daphne, two key major elements to Abraham Lincoln. One, Lincoln was damn funny. Lincoln was a storyteller. He was
I would never say that.
I know. No. Lincoln was a storyteller. So not only did he learn obsessively stories, it allowed him to relate to people, but even in like the 1840s in Springfield, when families would get together, the women many times would get so annoyed because typically it was a little chauvinistic. Men got together, women got together, as it still is in many parts of the world, and sometimes that's okay. But all the men were upstairs. Lincoln was holding court, telling stories. Judge in court. There's so many funny stories of Judge David Davis, who went on. Lincoln appointed him the head of the Supreme Court. He's a senator as well. Of Lincoln, making people laugh, and his storytelling was uncanny. He was hilarious, and Lincoln was lovable. Lincoln is somebody. I mean, Jefferson and Washington you revere, and other people you revere, but Lincoln, there was a homeliness. You can love Lincoln, and it feels okay. And the more you lift up on Lincoln, the more you realize you don't know. And then lastly, Lincoln was cognitively brilliant. And when you study the writings and speeches of Abraham Lincoln, you get to another level of understanding on how to communicate, articulate, and get what you want and tell people off without offending them. And my own personal vocabulary and ability to articulate, to read, to write has been immensely improved progressively through my study of all things Lincoln.
All right. I need to know what book that the best book for somebody who wants to start to understand Lincoln would be. Tell me now, tell me later. But I certainly would like to get an idea for the people who are watching, like if they want, because Lincoln obviously did a lot for us, right?
Yeah, of course.
Color, Black people, and so it's an interesting perspective. And you're a storyteller. That's what you also do. And I've seen some of your videos, so you kind of got that from him, certainly, honestly. So, okay, tell me the book. So what is the most important, I would say, life-changing, disruptive thing that you have done in your life, or have you not done it yet?
Well, first off,
to impact people that has helped to change people's lives.
We can have an entire session on books on Lincoln. Lincoln on Leadership is incredible. Abraham Lincoln by Carl Sandburg, a 6-book set, 4 of which won the Pulitzer. And then this book here by Michael Burlingame, there it is, Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, A Life. This is a 2-book set. Each are 1,000 pages. And he accessed so many things that weren't available to other authors. So that's considered, he's the most prominent living historian on Lincoln. So we can have a whole nother section, as you know, on Lincoln. I think when you think about what you've done, Daphne, the journey is where we live. So I think that my impact is micro impact. So I think about the young woman Eno in Nigeria who sends me a video and says, Sameer, the fact that you're supporting all of the disadvantaged women and their children through her foundation, E-Enable, in Nigeria, and you're also giving me a stipend, I just want to thank you. And she sends me a message every month of gratitude. And there are a bunch of times I really need that message. I'm sitting there looking at my email, looking at things I haven't done, and I'm like, wow. I think having it's like, this shirt, Girl Power Talk. It's like on my DNA. It's like it might as well be tattooed. But when I first started wearing a Girl Power Talk shirt, I was so embarrassed. I remember I wore it on and be like, all right, people are going to look at me. And I remember walking around, I could feel it. And now people look at me and I have to remind myself, it's a little bit of a statement, this guy walking around wearing this Girl Power Talk.
Yeah.
So that to me, and then being able to separate that out into our foundation, Girl Power USA, and Girl Power, and being a man that's behind that, and the respect and admiration you get from women. A woman recently said to me, a very prominent lawyer, she's like, Sameer, she was interviewing me to hire us for a couple things related to her firm and potentially experts on stuff. But she's like, I want to talk about Girl Power Talk. I'm like, what? She's like, you're doing all the things that I said I would do. And now I've reached basically the pinnacle of my career. I'm managing partner of the New York office. And, I'm very successful. And you reminded me that I'm not doing anything that really matters. And so that's probably when I think about to date. But of course, entrepreneurs and people that are so committed to others, everything I want to do is out there in front of me. I don't really view what I've done. Everything, this is the foundation.
Yeah. And I think that you're wearing that is, I want to say, a badge of courage. You're making a statement. You're telling other men that there's power in girl talk, or there's power in women. There's power in females. So you're a walking billboard, basically, for the rights of other women, and you're not ashamed to do that. At least not anymore. So that's great. So you built a career at the intersection of technology, reputation management, and service. And so if you were to tell us, the people who are listening, what could we do? This is the part where I say, what should we do Monday morning? What should we do when we hang up, we go back to whatever we're doing this afternoon or this evening? How can we embrace, make sure our digital presence is good? How do we make sure that whatever we're doing is going to reflect our values, but is also going to serve other people? Like, my God, and I'm not saying that you're like Jesus Christ, but it's not a bad thing to try to be like Jesus.
Absolutely.
Right. And so
listen,
there's all these things that you're doing. How do we do that? What should we be thinking how should we be thinking differently about what we do, who we do it for, how we do it, and things like that? Just give us some things that you think would help us to be better people, better advocates of the underserved and the overlooked and the undervalued. How can we be better?
It's a very deep question. One is, of course, leading by example and saying, I don't care what credit I get for it, but I'm going to make sure that, I pick up that piece of trash. I pay for that woman's groceries who you can tell is struggling, and I'm going to make some rippling effects. I think, too, the next best thing to doing the right thing is telling people you're doing the right thing. So we have to document. It's not narcissistic to have a website bearing your personal name. In fact, it's smart so that you can control the conversation on your own name. Two, I think that you need to recognize that the journey is where you live. If you talk to really successful people in later stages of their life, they really remember the times when they had nothing and the times that they struggled. And so embrace that, enjoy the journey, and also know that in order to go where you want to go, you've got to get other people to care about you, want to be around you. It's no secret. So that, of course, might be following up thoughtfully when you meet somebody. That also might be
That's a big one. Following up when you say, let's have lunch sometime. Well, lunch won't happen unless you make it happen. So following up thoughtfully, that's a really powerful thought. Yeah.
Someone says to me, oh, let me know when you're in New York to have coffee. They say it on LinkedIn. I've trained my team. I said, well, that likely won't just happen. I'm going to come there and, so if you want to meet and get to know one another, let's get on Zoom. That's great. And I'm very intentional. And what I do is, I follow up and send people my background and who I am, and I read about them, and I let some of them respond thoughtfully and say, let's meet and connect and let that drive interest. I also think that sometimes, of course, the line, we write something, put something to paper. You want to talk about digital presence? You got to put out the causes you care about, the influence you've had. If what drives you as a mother, a father, a brother, a sister, a niece, a nephew. Talk about that journey. Do something. If your grandmother's had the biggest impact on you, write about the 10 reasons that you love your grandmother, and do it when she's living instead of when she's no longer here, and let her get to see that. I think that what's awesome is Girl Power Talk, her conversation. Those are places to do that, and we're doing that in a small way, and that can be bigger. But one of the other things, Daphne, that I've started to do is trying to call maybe 2-3 people a week that I really care about, that have been there for me or that I like, and just letting them know I was thinking about them and I'm calling to see how they're doing. And I got no ask and I got no initiative. And of course, when you're somebody like me, there always could be an ask and I could always be updating them on things that we're doing. Instead, resist that. Now, if they ask and it goes down that route, which many times it does, that's different. But go there and let them know that, hey, because I value relationships, I wanted to call a few people this week. I tried to call 2 people, and you're one of them. I just want to see how you're doing. I want to let you know that I care about you and appreciate things you've done for me in the past, and feel free to reach out anytime you think I might know someone or something that can help you.
You got, ladies and gentlemen, he is so disarming. He hasn't met my husband yet,
Max,
but he will. And I know Max is going to say, what is Sameer? Why does he want to meet me? Because we are so used to there having a hidden agenda behind people, with people. And so wanting to be a friend, driving relationships, doing good for others that are overlooked, undervalued, underserved, et cetera, is, I think, a tremendous thing. And so how do we, isn't it difficult to exhibit ethical leadership in a world where, or maybe in a country where, what used to be right is now wrong, and what used to be wrong is now right? How do we not get twisted up in all that? Because people are now being celebrated for doing wrong things, for doing horrible things. And not everybody, but in places where it counts. How do you do ethical leadership in those circumstances?
I mean, I'm looking at all the minds you just placed in front of me, and I'm wondering how to respond to that. I would just say, stay.
We don't have to mention any names.
Just stay true to the things that you believe in. It's like, I've got some interesting decisions. So we have a foundation, Girl Power USA, and a large part of that has been me to start it giving my personal money and Blue Ocean Global Technology giving, now we give, I think, 10% of corporate income every year, just because I want to do good. And we have team members in our foundation that really are committed and have opinions on things. And we've got to resist taking a stand as an organization and appearing one way or the other, because the reality of it is that there are good people across the board, regardless of religious, political, country affiliations. And in order to be impactful, we can choose to stay true to some of the causes that we know definitively are benevolent,
and
altruistic. And it is really hard. And it's also hard when you get lost and you start, keeping track of the proverbial scoreboard on things you can't control.
So,
and so I just try to control Sameer Somal's little life and the little 24 hours he gets every day. And just try to, go to sleep every night feeling good about the friends I have, the things that I'm doing, and that I'm going to bed a little bit smarter in a way that Mr. Lincoln typically did.
Yeah. This conversation, by the way, if you all have any questions for Sameer, please put something in the comments or ask a question. It reminds me of us just taking a moment. My daughter-in-law does yoga, and sometimes yoga slows you down. It calms you. It tries to lower your heart rate and improve your breathing. And just having this conversation, you're basically telling us, go back to what you know is right. Go back to what you remember that you were taught before. Do good to others and treat people the way you want to be treated, and those things. And just slow down. Just stop doing all the time and think about who you want to become, and become that right person, because we're not human doings, we're human beings. So what do we want to become? So I really appreciate that you're causing us to really stop and reflect on that. So a question I had about right and wrong is, you were asked by President Trump to do something with expert witness. Did I get that right? Can you tell us more about that, whatever you can share? or you
I,
can actually
I
talk to.
thought we weren't going to touch any of those minds, Daphne. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, well, it
No, no,
was
um,
just a little bit.
so it's funny because I was speaking at a conference in Las Vegas, the International, I think, Car Association, and the night before I'd gone around the reception, and whether we like it or not, in this day and age, 2025, it's hard to go anywhere amongst the people and not talk about Donald Trump.
Right.
And he is polarizing people, and I'm agnostic about it. So when I got up on stage and it was supposed to talk about digital reputation, I did a little mic drop and I said, before we get started on digital reputation, why don't we start by talking about Donald Trump? And whoa, whoa, like
Well,
everybody in the audience of 1,000 people was like, now some people smiled, some people
yeah.
looked up and they had like the pitchfork and they wanted to like get up on stage and come after me like the farmer. And so then I told my story a little bit and I said, I got friends from Canada who want to create these 16th province states and US is 16th province. And, I've got others who, haven't taken down their Trump sign since, 8 years ago. So, yes, Donald Trump asked me when I was in Indonesia with the Girl Power Talk team to be the expert witness in the E. Jean Carroll case.
Okay.
And his legal team reached out, and Ashley Humphreys on the other side, who I respect dearly, and they of course asked me to be the opposing expert to respond to her expert report. And I mean, she'd been working on it, I don't know, at least 6 months, and it's a strong report. And so I said to them that I thank you for reaching out, but I'm gonna need not 10 days to do this report. I'm gonna need more time. I maybe said like a month and a half. And if you can give me that amount of time, I can make a decision whether I'm gonna accept that or not. And they refused to give that time. They said that the deadline's there. And so I had to decline it, not for any political reasons, but
Yeah.
and I guess I ended up, and of course I wrestled with the fact that, hey, what would people think, and what would be my reputation? And so I wasn't sure, but I didn't get to that point. And then, in legal cases, there's something called a Daubert motion, which is like a compliment. Daubert motion is like a famous case. And so when it's basically considered a compliment. So I get Dauberted a lot, right? So like the opposing counsel is like, we're going to file this Daubert motion that says Sameer isn't qualified to be an expert. So one of my very good friends, William Cheslovsky, he wrote a wonderful Daubert opinion, where he said, look, you're trying to discredit the guy. He owns a firm. He does all these things. And look at this email from the, at the time, the former president of the United States asking him to be an expert in his case. I think he's qualified enough. So it's become a little bit of a badge of honor, and I didn't alienate anybody. So
Yeah,
I feel like,
you're true to yourself. You said, this is I need time to do my due diligence. And you just don't accept, you just don't take anything that doesn't work for you, because then you will not be successful at it anyway. So that's great. So when we hung out together in Malta, and I know I think I had a couple of pictures to show that when we were hanging out there. Look at that. It was clear to me that you put your heart and soul into relationships. Everywhere I went, in fact, I was like, where's Sameer? Oh, he's with that group over there. Where's Sameer now? He's with that group over there. And he was like honey for bees. So can you share a story from your own journey where how building trust and relationships led to unexpected opportunities? Sometimes you look at building building a relationship because it's going to lead somewhere. But if you have genuine trust and genuine relationships, sometimes opportunities come about. Do you have any examples so we can learn about the value of building a genuine relationship and how it can, in your case, may have led to a great opportunity, unexpected or expected opportunity?
Yeah. Let's just take Malta, right? So
Malta, yeah, good example.
How did I end up there? Let's, like Steve Jobs says, you can only backfill the dots and what happened. So I'm like not this, person. I love speaking. I'm considered a professional speaker, but I also just look at the opportunity. And Larissa Miller called me and she said, Sameer, we're having this conference and I'm doing a whole bunch of sessions. And like, I know we got a couple men speakers and I'm sure they're good, but you're one of the best, if not the best that I know. And would you be able, like, what do you think about coming to speak at this conference in Malta? And I'm like, I've been waiting my whole life to be invited to a conference in Malta to speak. You know what I'm saying? Like, geez, like, you don't got to ask me twice. So I was like, okay, let me like pay, another $1,000 in airline change fees and let me go. And I thought about it, looked at the group and I said, if I'm going to go, Daphne, I'm going to go with all of me. I'm going to go with 100%. And when you do that, and that's why when I was so excited about it. And that's why when we talked on the phone, you're like, Sameer, what are you up to? I'm like, I'm going to Malta for this business of professional women. You're like, why is Sameer going to business of professional women? It seems like a place Daphne Jones should be going to. And then we went there and I tried to structure my life so that I was really present with people there. And because you just don't know. And I ended up making some incredible lifelong friends, like the MC, Michaela. Inspiring. And I can think of a number of others that I had really deep, but Michaela and I became fast friends.
You decided to be 100% there. You decided to listen. You were listening a lot. As a speaker, you listened a lot more than you spoke. And and so that people get endeared to you when you hear them because they're not often heard.
I was that kid that was knocking on the window when I was like 2 years old because I wanted my mom to roll down the window so I could talk to people. I've learned how to listen to others and let them be heard. No one cares about you until you show a little care for them. And I made some awesome friendships there that have already transpired. It's like Michaela, we haven't figured out how she's getting involved in Girl Power Talk. She's become a consultant. She's meeting us in Berlin, and we're figuring it out. Yeah. But the journey of getting to know someone like her, and I single her out because she's so real. And she invited me to her house, a couple of days after the conference, and I met her whole family. And, friends of hers were like, how dare you invite this man to your house? You've known him 3 days and you haven't invited me over. And she's just like, yeah. And she told me later, she's like, I wanted to test. She's like, I thought you were like really someone awesome. But then when I saw you hold court with like my 5 college age and teenage children, when they had like all these exams, like I realized you're all like on another level in terms of your authenticity with people.
And you haven't really quite defined yet where this relationship is going to even go. This is starting, but you wouldn't have started if you hadn't shown up.
She called me today when I was walking in Central Park, and I was walking and I was doing something we all need to do more of, especially me, think instead of like email, all that stuff. And we talked about like so many different things. And she said, oh my goodness, I have to get this. She says, well, Sameer, the whole reason I called you is to say like, I couldn't be more committed to Girl Power Talk and transforming it. And she's like, she's like, what should I be doing before we meet up in Berlin? And the fact that I built such a strong friendship, it was like today, I was calling you, I was like, Daphne, like, I can't wait to get on here, but I got all these different things. I'm running around. I might be running a little bit late. And you're like, no, not my show, Sameer. And I knew that was the case, but to me, I was just excited to see you. And because now we've spent a bunch of time together, and I really value the friendship.
Yeah. And this is an unusual friendship, guys. It's like, I never expected to meet him. He came up to me, we spoke, and I realized that there was something sincere and giving and helpful about him. And it's not just that, of course, my husband wants to know, tell me more about this Sameer guy. And I think I have a good sense of character and judgment, but you are the real deal. You're real deal Holyfield, as they say. And I appreciate you so much. What I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to go into a lightning round with you. Number one, I want to ask you a couple questions that you didn't know I was going to ask you. When are you going to write a book?
sooner than later.
Okay.
Sooner. Yeah, sooner. I've thought about something. I want to write it. I want to be one of those people that writes. But I want my first book to be on Abraham Lincoln, and I'm pondering. I'm working on a big paper, but soon it's coming.
That's
Well, I'm
kind
going to start in 2026.
I want to know about it, and can't wait to read more about it. What do you do for fun? You do a lot of public speaking. Maybe that's fun, but what do you do for fun? What do you love to eat? What's your guilty pleasures?
El Antico Vinayo, this sandwich place here in New York that literally they fly in the meats from Italy. Butter chicken gravy and butter chicken from India that I had people literally freeze before they get on planes and bring it here and get it through customs. I can't keep sweets in my house because I demolish them like literally the Cookie Monster, and it's not healthy. What do I like to do for fun? I like to read about Abraham Lincoln. I like to tell stories. I like to talk to people and listen to them, and I work incredibly hard on all the business ventures and things so that I can live an enjoyable life with people, and I love figuring out a way to surprise people with how I help them
Wow,
move forward in life. That to me is like the ultimate enjoyment.
that's fun. If somebody wanted to join Girl Power Talk, can they? Is it open to everybody? Who can join?
Yeah, so right now, Girl Power Talk, we're figuring out the next way. But yes, people can apply. Girlpowertalk.com. You can also apply to Girl Power USA, our foundation, and just be a volunteer and be a mentor and get involved. We built something beautiful. It's a strong foundation. We're figuring out the next phase. Now that's why we need to bring in some brilliant, young people, some brilliant, quote unquote, older people to mastermind and write the next chapter of that. It's like I was recently at a restaurant with a friend of mine, Bobby Hennebree, and I met this young woman named Skylar, and she was the waitress. And it was something about her. Like, she had really positive energy. And I asked her what she did. And she's like, basically her story is she's working 6 jobs because she don't want to go take that corporate job and tether herself to that BS life. And I'm like, yo, what's like your dream? And she's like, what are you asking a dream? She's like, well, these people actually care about me. And she's like, I'm a writer. And I'm like, whoa, cha-ching, writer? Because if you can write, you can think.
Think.
And we became friends. And now she's going to be starting to work with Girl Power Talk. And she met our CEO and interviewed with her and Gargi on Monday. And they loved her. And she's one of those, she represents somebody that I get inspired to hang out with, and others can too. So that little microcosm.
There's a pattern there.
Exactly.
And I think we see it. You show attention. People who can you care about them, then you will light them up, and their superpower will light up over them. So we have like 2 minutes left, guys. I want to thank Sameer for being here. Thank you so much. Maybe I'll come to Berlin and hang out with you there. Who knows if Mr. Jones allows me to do that?
Hey, let's get on some FaceTime with Max. All right, let me talk to him.
I want to thank you all for joining. I'd like for you to stay on for another 2 minutes or so. Got a couple of announcements, and I'll be right back. So, couple of announcements. So, this is the masterclass that we have for anybody that's ever wanted to join a board of directors, who want to understand what does it take to be on a board of directors. As many of you know, some of you know that Nichelle, myself, Terry, Tony, Brad, we are members of the board curators, and we teach aspiring board members and senior executives how to get ready to serve on a board. You're an operator today. You might be a senior vice president. You might be a vice president at any number of companies. And it used to be that being a board member, you had to be a CEO or a CFO. Well, not really anymore. If you know supply chain, if you know finance, if you know HR.
What's up, everybody? I wanted to let you guys know that we enjoyed you this season. On my first year on LinkedIn Live doing the Winner's Circle Live. And we are going to take a break for the summer. And we are going to be back in September, on the 9th of September, with my guest, Peter High. So I want you guys to have a great and fantastic summer. And when you are looking to watch a video, you are welcome to look at the recordings of the various LinkedIn Lives that I've done with my various amazing guests that I've had in my first year and my first season as your host. I hope you have a fantastic summer. Be safe, be careful, and be full of joy.
Okay, I think that cut me off a little bit. I didn't realize how short it was going to be on the screen. But if you all want to sign up, we have a 10% discount until Friday. I encourage you all to go onto my LinkedIn or the board curator's LinkedIn, and you're able to sign up for getting ready to serve on boards. It's a phenomenal 2-day class, and you will leave full of information, and you'll be excited about it. Okay, with that, Sameer, I thank you. Thank you for being with us today, and I appreciate you so much. Your honesty, your, I want to say, purity, and yes, you're still a diva to me. And you know, you look great, you talk great, you care deeply, and I appreciate that so much. Okay, everyone, thank you all. Bless you all. See you. Have a great summer. See you in September.
Thanks, Daphne.
Bye-bye.
Bye.